Steven, what's going on?
How you doing?
Doing all right.
Doing all right.
It's Wednesday, 4:45. The day's almost over. This is my last meeting of the day, so feeling pretty good. Feel like I had a productive day. How about you?
It's like a high of 71 degrees in Austin,
Oh
so
yeah.
that's a
Oh,
beautiful
wow.
thing. Yeah.
It was
Mm.
39 this morning, which is very cold for Austin in October. So, we're excited about that. Well, welcome to the show, Kim. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. It's like in the low 80s today. It's
Oh
very
wow.
nice and cool inside my apartment, and on our front porch it is also nice and cool. So I'm not complaining.
Love it.
For
Love
our
it.
audience, where's home for you?
Oh, good question. I'm in Berkeley, California, so it is only
Oof.
2:45 for me, but this is my last meeting of the day.
Oh, that's strong.
Very
So you can
nice.
use after this, you can knock out like an hour's worth of work
Yeah, I have
if you want.
at the end of every day, my last half hour is reserved on my calendar as focus time. It doesn't always end up staying that way, but most days it does because I try really hard not to be working up until the moment my kids get home from school.
Yeah.
I
And I
try
feel
to
like
like
people
press a
typically
little.
respect the focus time whenever they see it on the
Yeah,
calendar.
we're big on it at Oyster, and I am big on it personally. Uh,
Same.
I
Big
remember somebody
clockwise
saying once
user.
that like you should if you're working remotely and you're not commuting anymore, you should still book like commute time in your day so you still get that like mental breakage between work and home, which I think is really
I
smart.
like that. I like that a
Yeah.
lot.
That's kind of what I use my end of day focus time for. It's like tidy your stuff up, walk to the kitchen, start making dinner. Don't just like jump straight from work into family. Like you need that decompression time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's do good news stories. So every episode we all share a personal or work related story from the last week or two to kick things off. And I guess to give you some time to think about yours, Kim, I can get us started. So in the last couple of weeks, Stephen and I have done, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 intro calls or prep calls for future MPL guests. So we have like, I don't know, 8 weeks booked up. And we occasionally do this like every few months where we'll just get like, 8 future guests all lined up. That way we don't have to think about it. So I'm really excited for some of the guests that we have coming in the next few weeks. And yeah, it just feels like we have some good momentum with the podcast, and it's fun working on this stuff. So
It
it's
really
good
is. We
news.
have some exciting things coming. So that is great news. I'm gonna go personal this episode. So my good news is that we finally got our Halloween decorations set up outside. We are big Halloween fans, my partner Sarah and our two girls. We love Halloween. We moved to a new house though, and so we're a little late. And I think there is some
But you have
silent
like that fresh
panic.
canvas of like a new house to decorate.
Yeah, and there's like this cool
Exciting.
little area in our yard that we made like a spooky graveyard. So
Nice.
feeling
I'm
really
gonna
good
want to see
about that.
pictures of this.
You
We are also big Halloween decorators here.
You should have seen. So yesterday, Steven and I, we were supposed to record just a one-on-one podcast. We ended up using that time for something else, but I jumped onto the call and I had my Halloween costume on. So I ordered all of this stuff for the
Oh
for
my
the
God.
outfit, and my wife was like helping me, I guess, with my hair. So like basically I'm gonna be Bad Bunny for Halloween, and it's gonna require me to have this like crazy hairdo. So I
Yep.
jumped on to the call with Steven, and I'm wearing like these little glasses. I have like fake earrings on, and my hair looks crazy. And he's like, "What did I
Nice.
just walk into?"
I love it. We're gonna
Yeah,
have to
Yeah,
when you guys publish this podcast, we'll have to share pictures of our Halloween decorations in the
definitely, definitely.
whatever post goes with it. I'll
I
share
think
a personal win, personal good news for anyone who's followed the saga on my LinkedIn. We are finally lice free in our house. I'm gonna knock on wood. We went through a really awful 3 week period of lice, and then my two kids and my husband both got this really gnarly cold that's going around the Bay Area. And then we got lice again, and then I got the cold. And so we've just been
oh
in this cycle
wow.
for like 3.5 weeks or so of just like it's just utter exhaustion, and it's spurred a couple of LinkedIn posts from
yeah.
me And I think we're finally free.
You win. You win. Being lice free is
Lice
by far
always
the best
wins.
news we've talked about on this call, because I've been there. I've been there once with the girls.
I am
It's not
really
good.
We're all getting really good at combing.
Yeah.
And
Lice cold
one of my
doesn't sound like a good
husband's
combo.
coworkers, one of my husband's coworkers said that for a year after her kid had lice, she just would absentmindedly be like looking through their hair. And I realized like I'm totally doing that. I'm like, my kid's brushing his teeth and I'm just like looking through his hair without even noticing what I'm doing. Like this is gonna sit with me for a long time, I can tell.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and they'll get sick of it. They'll be like, "Mom, quit."
Yeah. I mean,
I
even my
know what you're
2-year-old,
doing.
like I'm like brushing his hair after his shower and he's like, I have lice, mommy. I'm like, no, you don't have lice. I'm just brushing your hair. This is clearly a formative memory for you. Great. But it's very normal for anyone listening who is a parent and has not experienced lice yet. It is normal. Apparently, all children will get it at some point. So
Yeah.
It's not a matter of if, it's just
yeah, it's
when it
when.
will
That is
happen.
what my daughter's kindergarten teacher said at back to school night. She said, it is inevitable. It is not an if, it is a when.
Steven, so Cora and Astrid have both had lice.
Oh yeah, and our story, I'll give you guys a short version. So they were, a co-parent, and so they had been with their mother, and my daughter had said something about like her hair, like it being really itchy, like unusually itchy, and we were leaving for the Bay Area, so I did a family trip, just me and the girls, and we went to San Francisco, and the first half of that trip we were on our own. The second half we stayed with a friend of mine, and they're still, my daughter had been complaining, and I checked it out, and I honestly, I couldn't see them. I like, when I looked, they were like all hidden in this one part of her head. So we're in the Bay Area at my friend's house. She has a child who is like 3 years younger than my daughter, so he was like 4 at the time, and I'm like getting the girls ready. I think we are going to go to Muir Woods, and the sun just beamed perfectly in my daughter's hair, and I saw like you see them like crawling in there. They're like legitimate. Oh yeah, they're like, when you see it and you really see it, And I was like, oh my God, I panicked. I was mortified because I brought lice. Yeah, I brought lice into my friend's house, who was so nice to let us stay with her. And then we had to fly back, and I was like paranoid on the plane. Like I'm like spraying everything. It was pretty traumatic for everyone involved.
Awful. It's like, it's not a big deal at all. And it's also horrible. It's this very contradictory experience.
Well, it's something that you mentioned, Kim. You mentioned something about like throwing away the stuffies. And like that's the worst part, because like my daughters would not allow me to throw any of them away. So I had to spray them. Yep. Then I had to wash them in hot water. It just was a whole thing.
We had freezer bags of stuffies in our, like, shoved into our freezer. I was like, sorry, Elmo, sorry, Kitty, you're going in the freezer.
So this is what I have to look forward to if I'm ever a parent.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I feel like anyone who's listening to this who's a parent is like, oh yeah, I feel you. And anyone who is like hoping to become a parent someday is like reconsidering all of their life choices.
Yeah.
I'm also willing to bet, of all the HR podcasts, this is the only time that we've talked about lice for an extended period of time.
I will happily accept that award. Most lice discussed.
There you go. There you go.
Cool. So
what are we supposed to be talking about? Not lice.
Yeah. One of my favorite, I guess, parts of our process of bringing on guests is the prep call, right? And we talked to you last week, and we must have talked, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes. And you walked us through your story of how you ended up being the head of employee experience at Oyster. So I thought if you could just try to recreate that story and regurgitate it, I feel like it's a really interesting story, and I think our audience would love to hear it.
I'll try to give it the short version, because I know we don't have, it's not a 2-hour podcast. So like many of my peers, I come to this field non-traditionally. I think that's the only traditional thing about the career path to people work, is that like most of us just weave our way here because we like helping people. I started out in theater. I started out working in theater research and criticism, and like historical context. For those in the know, it's called dramaturgy. No one knows what dramaturgy is, so I say research and criticism. But I started out doing that and then realized that it was really more of a passion than a career path for me, and ended up at Google. And I did really end up there. Shout out to my mom. She at the time was like, "Isn't Google in the Bay Area? You should go work at that Google company." This was back in 2007. Not to say Google wasn't well known then, but it wasn't quite what it is today. And I applied for an administrative assistant job and got it. And that's where I started my tech career. And I really, really learned a lot early on about like inclusion and company culture and what it means to like know where you are at your work, to know what company you work for, like in your bones, what that means, what the company's all about. And I'm only speaking for the Google of 2007, but that environment really shaped a lot of the way I think about how you take care of people at work, and thinking about values and mission and the importance of those things on your people and culture experience, and also your product and your sales and all of that. So that like turned the light on in my brain. When I realized that I didn't want a career path in sort of the executive assistant world, and there weren't many other options for me at Google, I ended up over at Pixar working on a production there. And again, that was another company that's really well known for their culture and their really strong, cultural identity for employees. It was very short-lived. I was there for 6 whole weeks before being the victim of a last in, first out, overstaffed production layoff, which was obviously very disappointing. I left my job at Google for this, but it really taught me a lot about how I believed employees should be treated at work, and how I believed employees should be treated not just on the way in, but on the way out. And all of these little pieces have come together over the years to shape how I think about employee experience. Fast forward a bit, I was the assistant studio manager at a relatively well-known recording studio here in Berkeley. Got to work with some pretty major recording artists and do a lot of really great work, but again, sort of capped career potential. Their only jobs there were mine or my boss's job. We were the only 2 people who worked there. And that's when I decided to get back into tech. I took a job at a company called Discuss. Back then, it was a very small Series A, like literally 12-person tech startup in a little tiny office in San Francisco. And they were looking for someone who was interested in HR, but had a lot of office management experience and can kind of come in and just own all of the stuff that wasn't code or sales. And that really fit the description of what I knew and what I was interested in. And I had a very quick connection with the CEO. Daniel and I really bonded right away, and I think formed that trusting relationship from the very beginning. And I was there for 8 years. I grew into my VP of people role there. I hired a team. We had a couple rounds of layoffs and a couple rounds of fundraising and an eventual acquisition. So I saw a lot of the like startup ups and downs roller coasters over the course of that 8 years, and really cut my teeth on this world. Post acquisition, I ended up sticking around for a bit and then going to work at a health tech company called Stride Health in the portable benefits space. Again, like Series B, 50 people, hired at their first VP of people. And I was there for about 18 months. I was unfortunately laid off right at the beginning of COVID, which was also right after my second child was born. And so I took a bit of a career pause, early pandemic, a newborn and a preschooler home from school, not exactly ideal for looking for a new job. So I took some time off. I got into advocacy work, working on Tend Lab, which is the company that helps employers create better workplaces for caregivers. Did that work and a lot of kind of related advocacy work for working caregivers for about a year before getting back into consulting so that I could start making some money. And my big first consulting job was working for Oyster. They were looking for an interim head of people. They were about 75 employees, post Series B, needed their first VP of people kind of person as they looked for their permanent CPO hire. And I joined. I did that job for about 6 months until we hired my boss, and he asked me to stay on to focus on employee experience. By that time, I think we were about 375, if I'm remembering correctly, by the end of the year. And we are now close to 700. So that's in
Wow.
about 15 months, going from 75 to 700. And we're in 70 countries around the world.
Let's go.
Yeah, it is. It is. Let's go, man. I don't know what the
Yeah.
policy is on cursing on this podcast, but
Curse away.
it is a let's fucking go situation. And has been since day one. It's, there was a point in time where I think sort of misguidedly, but I'm proud of myself for doing it, threw my hat in the ring for the CPO role. I was like, I can do this. I've taken companies to 75. I want to take someone from 75 to 150. Like, this is same problems, different scale. Put me in, coach. And our CEO wisely was like, we need someone who's done hyper growth at scale globally. Like, and I'm so glad we hired my wonderful boss, Mark, who I based my early career on. I followed his work, fangirled his work for many years before.
It's really cool to get to pick your
boss.
boss.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to pick him, but I'm really sure glad that Oyster picked him. And I'm still, like, every day learning from him what it means to really focus on employee experience as a strategic operational function, and not just as like 5 to 10% of everything else that I'm already doing, which is always how I had thought about employee experience before, was like, employee experience is everything, but that also means that it's kind of nothing, because it's everything and nothing at the same time. So what does it mean to really do employee experience strategically, thoughtfully, and 100% of your time? And I know we'll get into that later, but
Yeah.
that's
we
what
definitely want to talk
that's
about
what
that later.
got me to take an in-house position when I was like, I'm never going in-house again. It's too exhausting. I can't do this Series B crazy startup life anymore. And then I was like, well, maybe one more time.
And then you joined a company that grew from 75 to,
What are we thinking?
what'd you say? Whatever, 700?
We're closing in on 700.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple quarters there where we hired like 200 people a quarter.
Oh my man.
It was bonkers. We were onboarding like 15, 20 new hires a week, and also building all of the HR infrastructure as we went, because, Series B startup, just figuring its stuff out, like didn't even have 100 employees. Of course, there's no, like, I mean, to put things into perspective, one of the first things that I did was help to launch our HRIS, like in my second or third week of work. And it's like, we're getting out of spreadsheets and getting into the HRIS. And that's it. Like, that's all we've got. We're going to launch our first engagement survey.
Wow.
And thinking back on that, that was only about a year ago.
Probably feels like 5 years ago.
It does. It's wacky.
Yeah. So I feel like that's the perfect segue to my next question. So why should we be jealous that you get to work at Oyster?
So, okay. So there's two things. One is the obvious global team. I have coworkers all over the world. I have a little map. I'll just show you. I have a little map right here next to me. It is a child's place map, but it's my map. And it's really just fucking fun to have coworkers who are all over the world, who come from different cultures, who come from different work experiences. I have someone on my team who is a fantastic manager coach in Nigeria. We have like 1 to 2 overlapping hours of work a day. And most of our work by default has to be asynchronous, which means we have to be really good at handing off to each other. And we have to be really good at capturing our thoughts in writing and thinking differently about how we work together. I have to think really differently about how I act as a manager. And that's really exciting. I think a lot of the reason that I got excited about Oyster is that I didn't want to just repeat the same strategic people ops San Francisco tech startup thing that I've been doing for 10 years. I wanted to try something different. And Oyster really, really embraces this idea that global employment as we see it today is a totally new frontier. Yes, there are companies who have done fully distributed companies for a while, but in terms of like a shift in the way we think about work and where you work and how you work and when you work, things are shifting so fast. And we have this opportunity to kind of model the future of work in the image that we want to see it in. And that's really exciting for a person who likes to blow things up and create something new. Like, that's why I got started in people ops early on. Is this idea that you take something and you say, this isn't working for people, and we're just doing it this way because that's the way they have always said that HR needs to be done. But what if it didn't need to be done that way? What if we could do it differently? What would that look like? And we get to build that every day at Oyster. We get to think about What are the laws? What are the regulations that we have to comply with? And like, what are the ones that maybe we don't? What are, not to say we break the law, but like, where do we want to push the boundaries? Where do we want to try to invent a new way of working together and not do something just because that's the way it's always been done?
Wow.
It's
Well,
super fun.
that's a lot, and we haven't even talked about your mission yet, which
We haven't
is
done
like what?
anything.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
It's gonna be a
But
2-hour podcast. Sorry, everybody.
that's what got me is when I heard that I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
this sounds like a really cool place to work. So, well, like most careers, people leaders are typically gunning for the top job. Like if you have chosen a career in HR and you've spent a good amount of time, typically it's like, okay, what is my career path to
Yeah.
be CHRO, VP of people? However, and you touched on this earlier, you made the decision to move away from the top role.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't right at Oyster, knowing your skill set and having done dozens and dozens of these interviews, there you could be hired as a head of people. And so I'm curious, why did you make the decision to move away from the top role? And just can you share a little bit more about that part of your journey?
Yeah. I think there's something we didn't touch on in our pre-recording call that I've been thinking about, which is that I think I actually knew this long before I made this decision at Oyster. I keep thinking about a conference I attended several years ago, and my dear friend Caitlin Holloway was speaking about the role of the CHRO and getting your seat at the board table. And I remember attending that session thinking like, she's someone I consider a friend and a mentor, and I look up to her and I follow her career journey, and she's gonna like help me figure out the answers to like how to get in the boardroom, because traditionally VPs of people are excluded from these kind of board level conversations. And I remember sitting there and listening to the way she was talking about the kinds of things that you can do and the kinds of influence you can have and the kinds of knowledge that you bring to the table, and just thinking like, I don't actually know if I want to do that. Like that doesn't actually sound like that much fun to me, and it's not the things that I love the most about this work. And maybe the CHRO path isn't the path that I want to take, but I was already on that path and I didn't have another option in mind. So I kept going along that path and being my VP of people self and doing things that I knew I could do and was good at, but didn't necessarily love. And it's tiring. It's really, really, really tiring. It's a hard fucking job, especially the last 2 years when, I mean, I won't go into detail because there are many people who have said it better than I. Many articles have been written about the exhausting and thankless work of people leaders for the last 2.5 years and 2-3 decades, but really the last couple of years. And I just found that when I was laid off from Stride, I just didn't have it in me to do it again. And it's something that you hear a lot from people in this role where we joke about like, how many more build and scales do you have left in you before you retire, before you go consulting, before you go VC, before you quit the industry entirely and go become a teacher or a filmmaker or literally anything else. And like, that's not a healthy way to be thinking about your career path. Is like, how many more times can I get through another one of these before I quit? And I knew I didn't have another one in me right then, as a newly minted mom of 2 in a pandemic. And over the following year, it was just I was more and more clear that if I could avoid it, I wanted to avoid it. And the only reason I took the consulting job doing the job at Oyster is that I knew it was short term. And I've been very open with them about it. This is not news. But I was like, I'll be your interim head of people because there's that interim in front of my title. And the only reason I even considered throwing my hat in the ring for the C-level role was that I fell in love with the company and I fell in love with the mission and the team. And I was like, if I was going to do this again, this would be where I would do it. And now that with the scale that we've seen, I am just so very glad that I am where I am and not in my wonderful boss's job, because it is a hard job and it's a hard job at scale and it's a hard job at hypergrowth. And yeah, I really like my cozy little corner over here where I still get to support the rest of our workplace team and support the executive team in a lot of this work, but I am not responsible for all of it. And
Yeah.
maybe someday, maybe when my kids are older, maybe when, I don't know, life is different, I'll be interested in doing that again. But right now, I mean, every time I see a job description for a CPO, CHRO, VP, people kind of pop across my inbox. I look at it and I'm like, that just sounds like a lot. And I know the reward for doing that, and it's not great. And I just don't have it in.
What a blessing. And you don't need me to tell you this, because I see it in your face when you're talking about, I see the smile on your face, to have figured this, to figure that out, and to like not have that, sometimes I feel like when you are pursuing, when it's role driven, the work you're doing, it's like you're held captive by like, oh, I've got to get that next job. I got to get that next promotion. Then you get there and it's like, I got to hold on to this. I can't mess up, and then if you do get let go, there's like a finite number of, chief people officer, CHRO roles, and then you struggle. And I've seen, I have former colleagues and friends who, get spun out because they're still caught, they're still held captive by that, by that.
And when I was looking to leave Discuss in our kind of post-acquisition time period, when I was thinking about what my next step would be, I had interviewed for roles at companies who they had no interest in me because I hadn't done the scale that they were looking at. I hadn't been the VP of people for a 500-person startup. And so they were passing on me. So the only things I was really, quote unquote, qualified for based on my resume were more Series B 50-person startups. And I was like, I just don't know how many of these I can do, because it's a really hard job, and it's a big job. And I mean, this is something I'm excited to be working on at Oyster, we're doing a lot of work to try to revolutionize the way we look at the field in general. It's a lot of what I was doing when I was running the community that I founded, org, the organization organizers community, is like bringing respect and authority to this field that drives so much business strategy and drives so much like unseen impact, but is a role that is not often respected or listened to or consulted. And I'm so grateful that at Oyster we're getting to do a lot of that work and try to build community around this movement for more human centricity in the workplace and more kind of employee centric practices.
Well, one of the things you mentioned in our prior conversation about your current role as head of employee experience is that's the piece of the part of the people function that you enjoy the most. And so what is it about employee experience work that creates so much joy for you?
I think it's sort of the generalist element of it, of like, our team's job is really to weave together all of the different pieces of the employee experience story and the journey that you're on. We haven't yet gotten to our like actual employee journey mapping project yet. I'm hoping that's a Q1 project. But this idea that like from your first interaction to your last interaction with a company, from the time you're a prospect candidate to the time you are an alum, what does that journey look like? How do we as a company make it consistent? How do we make it consistently good? How do we make it like logical and in adherence with our mission and our values? How do we make it equitable across all of our teams? It's a never ending challenge. It's not something that you solve and then it's done. But I really, really like that sort of experiential lens and looking at how are people experiencing working at our company? What is the journey that they're going through when they work for us? And is it the one that we expect? And is it the one that we want? And if it's not, how do we change it so that it is?
And so, in your opinion, what kind of company should have a head of employee experience?
All of them. I mean, I do think.
Tell us more. Tell us more. No, this is good.
Yeah, I think it is a relatively new standalone function. I will say it's traditionally been a part of people ops or a part of HR, and it's not. Even if someone is called employee experience, traditionally that's like the office manager. And actually, when Mark was talking to me about this job, I was like, I'm a little skeptical to have a title that is employee experience, because in my previous experience, that's just a fancy way to say office manager, which a lot of times is a fancy way to say like front desk administrator. And like, I don't want people to think that's the job that I have, because I know that that's not the job that I have. And I had to get over myself a little bit and think like, part of my job is to shape the evolution of this field. part of my job is to normalize this job existing as a strategic function. And Oyster believes that it's a strategic function. I believe that it's a strategic function. So I really think that part of my job is evangelizing and bringing awareness to the importance of this work. Because if you're a company and you're seeing the employee experience as a result of a lot of other things that you've done, but you're not defining what you want that result to be, and you're not thinking about how everything plays into it, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're just like throwing a bunch of projects at the wall and saying like, well, I guess that's what our experience is. It's all these different things. And that's, sort of, what's the word, like shoddy, slapshod, is that a word? I don't know.
Yeah.
Shoddy and bad. Patchwork. I'm just going to combine a bunch of words together.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, I wish this kind of role existed when I joined the workforce back in 2000,
Yeah.
because I feel like it is a great way to get exposed to all aspects of HR, but not being
For
embedded
sure.
in any particular
For
aspect.
sure.
And then it's based on how you described it. It feels like it's an ever growing, it's organic, right?
Yeah.
So that experience, just like the customer experience, is going to change over time as your
Right.
products change, as your go-to-market strategy changes, as you grow as a company and your
Right.
culture evolves,
Your
your employee
your
experience.
experience strategy should change. Your HR strategy should change. I think that's one of the challenges is that because we don't have decades of proof on this, there's companies who don't have the buy-in to have someone who's purely focused on this, but at a strategic level. And when you have someone in this role, they don't necessarily know what to do with themselves, and they're not given direction because usually they're understaffed and undermanaged. And so I feel very lucky to be in a position where I have a peer in talent acquisition, I have a peer in people operations, I have a peer in like learning and development, workplace design, and we all report into a boss who really understands and values and believes in the work that we're doing. So we can define what we want this to be. And I have conversations all the time with people who are like, your title's head of employee experience, my title's head of employee experience. Like, let's compare notes and see, like, what does your job look like? What does my job look like? So I mean, if you think back to like 10 years ago when we all started changing our titles from HR to people ops, I feel like now it's like the next phase of that. And we're going from, well, it's not just people ops. People operations is different from employee experience. And how are they different? And where's the overlap? And how do you have the capacity to have two leaders, one on each side? And if you don't, how are you dividing the work so that they're working in partnership, but not expecting one person to be good at operationalizing and one person to be good at it's like front of house, back of house. And
Yeah.
it's so much better. Speaking as someone who did both for a very long time, it's so much better when there are two of you. I feel so much more able to have capacity to think in a meaningful way.
Yeah. I think it's really cool how you're sort of evangelizing the head of employee experience role and almost, being the spokesperson and getting out there and trying to talk about it as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've noticed that, Darren Murph, who we've had on the show, he's the head of remote there. And I feel like that's half of his job as the head of remote at GitLab. It's like, how can I talk about, my role and all of these practices that we're putting into place at GitLab as much as possible to not only help build our employer brand, but I guess sort of like define what a head of remote's supposed to do. I think him just being out there talking about it has gotten a lot of people to say, hey, maybe we should have a head of remote. And this is what, the responsibilities of that person should look like because I heard Darren talking about it. So I think it's cool that you're trying to do the same thing for head of employee experiences.
Yeah. And in a way, I had a really great model in that Reese Black on our team, who heads workplace design, used to be our head of remote. And he did a lot of work when I was first joining Oyster. He was doing a lot of work evangelizing the head of remote position and did a lot of talks and did a lot of laying that foundational groundwork alongside these other remote work pioneers to say, here's what it can look like. Here's why you should have a head of remote. I think we have articles from the Oyster library of content that's like, what is a head of remote and why do you need one? And I feel like now a lot of the stuff that he's working on in terms of evangelism is less about the justification and more about how to be impactful in your role and the kinds of things that you do and what does it actually look like day to day, and demonstrating the practice versus making the business case for it, which is, I feel like, I don't know if I'm not making the business case for it or if I am by doing, but like I got so tired of making the business case for employee experience for most of my career that now that I have the title, I'm like, well, fuck it. This is the justification. Like it exists. Deal with it. Here's how you do it. And
Well,
probably there
I,
needs to be a little bit more about like, why do you need a head of employee experience and why is that different from people ops? But I'm sort of operating myself under the understanding that like it should just be a given. And maybe that'll be demonstrated by showing what we're doing with it.
well, I would challenge you to keep evangelizing and leaning into that, because what Daniel and I get to sit at this unique, vantage point.
Yeah.
And we have these amazing people come on this show and they talk about these amazing things. And what, it's hard to connect all the dots, honestly.
Yeah.
And Daniel, when we have our one-on-one conversations, like not recording, we're trying to piece together everything that we're hearing. And we believe that, there's a bigger movement happening,
Yeah.
a
I
better
agree.
way of working, a more effective way of working, a more humane way of working. We're not quite sure what it is or what to call it yet, but
Nobody
it's
is.
I feel like we're all part of this movement, and
Yeah,
and because
absolutely.
of that, I'm gonna put that out there. So
That's great. I was just on a call about this earlier today with our people builders community that we're getting ready to launch, that we've done some work with already, in terms of this really is about galvanizing a movement to change the way we work. That's a big part of Oyster's our MO, is like, how are we impacting a new future for work? And it's not that we can do it alone, because we can't. No one company can do it alone. It's the same stuff that I was fighting for the last year working on caregiver support, or last 2 years working on caregiver support. This is not something that is up to companies. It's not something that's up to governments. It's not something that's up to individuals. It's up to all of us to come together to create a different world. And I feel the same way about work. We have outdated labor laws. We have outdated like tax compliance codes. We have outdated corporate company bureaucracy, and we have outdated individualized beliefs. And there's so much unlearning that we need to do if we want to move forward and have a better way of working together, that I feel very privileged to be in a position to not only get to experiment and do the work and see what works, but to like be loud about what we learned, whether it was right or wrong.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
be loud.
Be as
Yeah,
loud as you want.
that's right. One of
Yeah.
our team members introduced me to the acronym of FAIL, first attempt in learning. Apparently
Mm,
this is very common in learning environments. I just didn't know about it, but I think of that all the time now when I think about how we talk about our failures, because if anyone is going out there and saying we figured it out, we know how to do global employment perfectly, and we have it all
yeah.
figured out, and our company has a perfectly seamless, inclusive global culture, like, then they're just lying to you,
Yeah.
because this is so new. No one has it all figured out. So the best we can do is have really strong convictions and build in a way that is equitable and as fair and balanced as we possibly can,
Mm-hmm.
and be transparent and build trust with the people who we want to come along with us on this journey by admitting when we've made mistakes.
Yeah.
We said we didn't get this right, but we're learning and we're trying our best, and we're asking you to have faith in us as your leaders, and in us as a company, and as us as like movers and shakers, that like we have our hearts are in the right place. We're trying to do right, and there's no roadmap. It's
Yeah.
that old you can't use old maps for a new world
Yeah.
line, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's one of
Yeah.
my I need to like put that on my wall. It's such a great quote that now I can't attribute. I'll have to look it up afterwards. Like flash on the screen. This is who said that great line. But it's so true. And I feel that every day, that a big part of what we're doing is drawing new maps.
Yeah. Yeah. Your mission is really to just make it possible for companies to hire anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
And y'all are dog fooding, right? Like y'all have
we
hired in
are.
70 countries, 700 employees, and you're using your company as the guinea pig for how to make this work. And I love that
Yeah.
acronym FAIL, first attempt in learning.
First attempt in learning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm curious, like what what have been the biggest challenges in creating a unified global employee
Yeah.
experience when you're operating in so many different countries?
I mean, so there's two things that I'll speak to. The first one is a little more obvious, but it's around hiring. And because I think that's a question that comes up all the time is like, how do you actually hire globally? And I think you have to really think about what your priorities are. And if you're trying to move fast, you're not going to be able to hire strategically in a globally distributed way because it takes more time. It takes more time to find candidates outside of traditional markets, outside of traditional job boards or sourcing channels, to find people in regions where you might not be as kind of enmeshed in that location to find the talent you're looking for. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means like it's a lot harder for most tech companies to hire a software engineer in, I don't know, pick a location on my map next to me, to hire an engineer in Finland Finland. I don't know why I picked it's yellow. It's easy to see on my
There
map.
are engineers in Finland.
But it's a lot harder to find that person than it is if you like throw a rock in San Francisco and you hit an engineer. Like, I'm not throwing rocks at engineers, but this has turned out to be very sloppy. But it is harder. It takes more time. That doesn't mean you can't do it. We hired, I believe it was 75 or 80% of all of our new hires in Q3 were hired outside of like the tier 1 traditional markets. And that is because our recruiting team had a goal to hire, I think they're somewhere around 80%. I'm not on the recruiting team. These are not my goals. Sorry, Aaron. We set a goal to explicitly, strategically source in those locations, hire in those locations, and unless we really, really needed to not add to our US, UK, Canada headcount, because we have a lot of people there. It's easier to hire there. And I say that as someone who is there. Like, but that's not going to help us achieve our mission. But for that period of hypergrowth, we were really challenged to grow super, super quickly. And so we had to sacrifice some of that strategic geographic hiring. And we did that explicitly. We talked about it when we set hiring goals. We talked about it when we set our like hiring philosophies. So like this goal is we have to close 200 headcount this quarter. If you're going to try to close 200 headcount, we had like 8 recruiters. You can't do that in a quarter while also taking the time to be really strategic and thoughtful. And so we knew that that was going to be something that got deferred to when things slowed down a little bit. And we proved this quarter that you can do it. But we tried to outsource this. I'll say this very explicitly. We tried to outsource this to other recruiting firms and couldn't find anyone who could really do what we were looking for. So our team trained up on doing it themselves. And we trained our recruiting team on how to do this type of strategic sourcing. So super big challenge. The other thing, it's an easier thing to say. I'm not going to go into big detail, but obviously, like, you have people from 70 countries.
Well, before you get into that,
I
have a question about the hiring piece. So
sure.
If I'm sitting, or if I'm in my car driving right now listening to this episode,
Hello.
and I'm and I'm thinking, well, like, why is it so important to hire in some of these tier 2 or tier 3 locations? Like, what would your answer be for them?
The world is not an equitable place. Opportunity is not equally distributed around the world. There's another, old saying that talent is evenly distributed and opportunity is not. And I think in today's world of work, where work so much, we're talking knowledge work, we're talking computer work, we're not talking like factory labor at this point in time. It's so easy to work remotely that there's no excuse to narrow your talent pool. And I feel a personal obligation to use my privilege, use my platform, use the resources that I have to create more opportunity for others, to make more room at the table, to create more space. And I think all of us working in venture-backed tech companies, especially, have an obligation to put that money in other places. Like, San Francisco doesn't need more tech workers. I'm sorry, I'm probably get in trouble for saying that, but like, there's a lot of us here. Like, what about taking those salaries and putting them into local markets? What about letting talented people stay where they are? And so many of our employees have told stories about how they had to leave home to to get a good job in tech, or they had to leave home to get their first sales job or to go to school, and to be able to go home and be with their family, to be close to their loved ones, to return to their city where they grew up, or to just live somewhere else. That's been the stories that are super meaningful to me are when people remind me of why we're doing this, when it's the people who are so incredible and such great contributors to our team, and there's like such incredible talent, and they tell me they never thought they could get a job at a big tech company like this, because they thought they would only be limited to companies in their city, because that's the way it's always been. And I don't say that as like, oh, we rich people in San Francisco should give jobs to the poor countries all over the world. Like, I think there's this very white savior-y mentality that can come along with this kind of work. And I really think of it more as like, this is the obvious answer, is that we should be trying to equalize access to opportunity, because the limitations of the access to opportunity were not done in like a just, logical, reasonable way. It was all done through, colonialism and racism and sexism and all these like terrible reasons that our world is so divided, has resulted in a divided world. And so I think our job, when we have the ability to impact access, our job is to make a positive impact on access.
If we were in a prior decade, the context of this conversation would have been outsourcing or offshoring, or a combination, right? And so what has changed to shift this conversation? Like, hey, you don't have to. Well, and I guess this is a two-part question. A, is there still that belief that the only way I can capitalize on talent in these other markets is through offshoring?
Yeah.
And the second part of the question is, what has changed? Why should I be more open to this kind of model today than, 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
I mean, I would like to think that there's a certain level of like appreciation and respect that has come in the last decade for the fact that like this type of knowledge work that we're talking about exists outside the US. Like, when I say we, I mean largely the US, because we're the arrogant ones in the conversation most of the time. But like, the reality is that like there's a huge and booming tech scene in Nigeria. There's a huge booming tech scene in Dublin, Ireland. There are incredibly smart and capable tech leaders in Singapore and in the Philippines. Like, there's people all over the friggin' world who are smart and talented and capable, but haven't been given the opportunities. And I would like to think that the conversation is shifting because we're becoming more globally conscious and we're becoming more connected. And, I think offshoring and that it's always had this sort of like pejorative context, and that it's like you get your cheap labor, you've got a bunch of people sitting in a call center, and like they come and go and you probably never learn their names, and it's just like hundreds of cheap labor employees. And it really devalues the human experience of people. And I hope that more companies will change the way they're thinking about that. But I will say, like, the reality is, like, even if you pay well above market for talent in those areas, you're still going to be operating at a cost savings compared to what you would be in San Francisco, New York, Canada. I'm aware that Canada is bigger as a country than just New York and San Francisco as in the US, but you're going to be paying less in those markets for the talent, even if you are paying 90th percentile or over 100th percentile of market. And that's where we see, hopefully the future going, is that companies can take advantage of cost savings in a way that is not the same as like creating a giant offshore team and like abusing your labor force because you're just playing into outdated systems. And just because some countries have a history of abusive employment practices doesn't mean that you have to participate in them just because you're hiring people there. You can do differently. You can do better and still save your company money. But like that person who asked you for $15,000 US, what if you paid them 25 instead of 15, that's probably still less than you would have paid them in most other places in the world.
Yeah. Preach. So I want to make sure we allow you to finish your thought from earlier. I know I interrupted you to ask about hiring, but you said that there were three
I'm
big
ready.
challenges. You
Oh,
hit on number one. What
no,
were two and three?
there's really two that are like the biggest things.
Okay.
The second one
Cool.
for me is the cultural component of, it's something that we're experiencing ourselves right now around when you create a company culture. If we say this is our culture as Oyster, the global culture, we have to make sure that we are acknowledging and appreciating that there will be people from lots of other different country cultures, national cultures, now places of origin, that might not be used to the way we operate, or might not be used to working in this way, or might not have the same type of cultural awareness that we're trying to set. And I have to be really careful that I'm not applying a US centric cultural mindset and like a San Francisco tech company mindset, because that's where I, you know, grew up working, but also looking at what practices are we asking people to unlearn when they join us. We're facing this right now around continuous feedback and performance management, and people all over the world, including here in San Francisco, are very used to the like annual or semi-annual performance review style performance management, which we're not doing at Oyster. We're doing a continuous feedback model, and we are constantly reteaching that to ourselves as a company and saying, this is how we want to do things. This is the company culture we want to have around feedback, regardless of what you're used to, regardless of how your manager at your last company did it, regardless of how you did it at the last company you were at. Like, this is how we're doing it here. And what does that mean? And what does that mean in terms of like the language we use to give feedback? What does that mean in terms of how we receive feedback? And just really, really being explicit about what it means to be a part of our culture. It's challenging, man. There's like the super basic challenges of like, what holidays do you celebrate as a company? Do you acknowledge pride in countries where it's illegal to be gay? Like, these questions that seem really simple, but and it can be really simple. You just have to have an answer, commit to it, and stand by it, and say, like, as a company, we believe in respecting and celebrating all identities of our employees, all intersecting identities of our employees. And if you live in a place where it is not safe to be your whole self, know that you can be your whole self here, however you feel comfortable doing that. But then it gets down to this initiative we're working on right now around diversity data tracking, like our DEIB programming tracking. How do you track data when the laws around what you're allowed to track vary by country? Is very hard. But it's an interesting problem. It's an interesting challenge to try to solve. And it's this like creating new maps thing that I really like. I really like doing it. I like seeing something be like, this is a problem that doesn't seem to have been solved yet. I don't know if there's a right answer, but like, let's work backwards. Let's figure it out. Let's say what we wanted. I was really good at proofs in geometry in high school. I'm really bad at algebra. And I think that is manifesting in my career choices. Like, I like to know where I want it to be and then work my way backwards and see if I can figure out how to do it. I don't like to know that A plus B equals C and I have to do it right every time.
Well, yeah, and I think it's more than that, Kim. I think that a lot of people feel uncomfortable designing or defining things that don't already exist, or like having to reimagine something. And the risk that's involved with reimagining is you get it wrong, that it doesn't work out the way you want it to work out. And so it takes a lot of courage to do the work that you do the way that you do it for a company like Oyster that is really radically trying to change the way that we look at how work gets done, how all the things that we've talked about. And so let's focus on the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging metric. So what does that process look like? Like, how do you begin to start to redefine these metrics?
So we've undergone about a I mean, really, we started talking about this like a year ago, but it's mostly been in the last 6 months or so that we've really dug in. And we here is myself, someone from our people ops team, and someone from our legal team have been going through. I said, in a perfect ideal world, this is what I want to know about people. I want to be able to know, are we promoting equitably across gender, across geography, across level, across department? I want to know, are we compensating fairly across our caregiving population and our like the different ranges of ethnic and racial diversity that we have? I want to like be able to slice and dice this data in a million different ways to really dig in and make sure that we're being equitable. And legal very kindly was like, well, here are the countries where you can't even ask those questions. It's like, okay, cool. Let's work our way backwards. What can we ask and where can we ask it? And does that change if we make it optional and anonymous versus adding it into our HRIS and like requiring people to fill out a census, basically? And where we've landed right now today in October of 2022 is we have added a demographics section specifically around DEIB related fields. So it's things like gender, sexual orientation, race, caregiver status, disability status. We've added those demographics into our one of our engagement surveys that we do per year. We're planning on doing this in Q4 every year as a point in time DEIB analysis. And so because we've added those as demographics, they will show up in our data as anonymized, aggregated results that we can sort within. As long as we have more than 5 respondents in a category, we can slice up by that for that data set. And that'll at least give us point in time data. So we can look total at our population and say X% of our company belongs to these different demographic groups. And then we can look at key sections of our engagement data, our engagement survey questions to see, are certain employee populations, are certain demographic groups more or less impacted? Are there certain groups that are experiencing our company culture in an adverse way? And we can really look and see, because traditionally you just look at age and tenure and department are kind of the main, gender maybe if you have a particularly gender balanced team. I feel like sometimes at tech companies it's like there's one woman on your team so you can't splice by gender, but we're over 50% female identifying at Oyster, so it's a pretty good one for us to look at actually. But in addition to looking at age, gender, and department and tenure, like I want to look at these other factors. I want to know when someone says, when they're answering questions about burnout and work-life balance, I want to know if employees of color or caregiving employees or employees of certain ages or employees in certain countries or locations, if they're impacted more than others, because that allows us to shape our focus more strategically and not try to apply a one size fits all solution to the entire company.
Wow. I want to, Daniel, plan out a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging group discussion. And I want Kim to invite you to come back. I know we haven't even finished the current interview, but I want you to come back because there's so much that
Let's
think
do this like
into.
in Q1, Q2, once we've analyzed all our data from Q4 and come up with our strategy for next year. Like I'll feel a lot more comfortable once we've actually done this first time.
That's the podcast title, like how to set your whatever strategy for the year.
Yeah, figuring your shit out.
Yeah,
one piece at a time.
But I love what you're doing. I love the way you're looking at it. I've got so many questions, but unfortunately, we're at that point where we've got to start turning a corner to the finish line here. So I'm going to take us into our rapid fire questions.
Ready.
It's the same set of questions that we ask every guest. And so my first question: how do you define a modern people leader? What are the traits and characteristics?
Flexible, resilient, and creative.
Ooh.
I thought about this ahead of time. Spoil. I'm not usually this on top of it, but they did come to me very quickly. Those are 3 very important traits.
Anything else to add, or is that all you got there?
I mean, I would, if I had to put them in order, I would say resilient, flexible, and creative, or flexible and creative, and maybe on the same line. But like resiliency is an underrated skill for modern people leaders, I think.
+1 of that. I totally agree. Okay, moving on. If you could go back in time and talk to a 22-year-old you, what career advice would you give yourself and why?
So as you know, my career has followed many funky little twists and turns, but I think to keep following your heart and following the things you're interested in, even if they don't seem totally related to a ladder or a path that makes sense, um, interesting diversions on your journey make for unique and personal and interesting career stories and journeys. And I mean, I think about things now and I realize that decisions I made or projects I took on in theater jobs I did, in improv study I did in high school, in like running a radio show in college, like all these random bits of experience have all informed my ability to show up today. And so like don't get don't get too worried that something seems like a diversion because it's probably just going to add up to another piece of your story.
My senior year in college, undergrad, I my dad was like, "Hey, mijo is, what, my my Mexican American father calls me." He was like, "Mijo, I think I can get you a job, and I really think you should talk to my friend." So I talked to his friend, and it turns out, he had a job, an internship at the Texas State Controller's office in their payroll department. And I was like, this sounds terrible.
Boo.
I honestly only took it because it paid a lot back then. And earlier I mentioned that I started my career in our prep call. I mentioned that I started my career in the international HR, global mobility space. That is literally the only reason that Ernst & Young made me an offer, is because I had this
Yep.
payroll
You never
experience,
know.
which is crazy. Yeah, you
Never
never know.
what's gonna give you the skills you need to get the job you want eventually.
That's so true. Last question. If you could fix any HR people problem with a magic wand, what would it be and why?
Respect.
Love
Tell
it.
me more.
Percent. I can go into more detail, but I don't think even our
We
listeners
have
need
time.
more detail. Yeah,
We'll
no,
take it. Respect. Love it.
All right. So it's actually one more question. Who should we bring onto the show next? Is there anybody that you're following on LinkedIn, or you're
Can I give you
listening
two
to on
names?
podcast, or it's just somebody that you're friends with? Yeah, you can give a
Give you
couple
two
names.
names. Kimberly Bringus.
Okay.
She's currently at Drizzly, the alcohol
Drizzly.
delivery service.
Okay.
One of the best minds I know in terms of remote global inclusion, D&I, and like learning and development. And Jen Paxton, who runs people over at Smile. She also has a side hustle tech company that she's working on. I don't know if I'm allowed to
I
talk about
saw
it yet.
that.
Is it public now? Okay. So Jen Paxton, she's bomb. Those are two people who, for the last several years, I have standing, mostly social calls with, and we keep them like every couple weeks or every week in some cases, because I learn so much from them every time I talk to them.
So Jen was actually one of our very first guests from,
Oh,
I guess, almost
already
like,
got Jen. So you already know
Shout
how
out to Jen
well, we need to
Paxton.
bring her
I fucking
back.
love that
We
woman.
we brought her back for a group episode, probably like, I guess it must have been like June 2021,
Oh man.
and we haven't had her back since. So
Oh,
maybe
she
she'll
is
be our first 3-time
delightful.
guest.
Hey, you get like when you host Saturday Night Live 5 times, you get a velvet jacket. Like there's like awards for showing up on this podcast.
I love
Yeah.
it.
We'll have to think of some type of award.
Yes.
All right. So one word or phrase to close out the episode. And I can go first because I feel
Go
like
for it.
Steven might try to steal this one, but first
Ooh,
attempt in
sneaky.
learning.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna go with resilient. I love that.
And I'm gonna go with rest.
I also like rest.
Me too.
Rest is important. Rest
Very
is
important.
its own form of work.
Agreed.
Well, for our listeners out there, well, first, Kim, thank you so much for joining. This has been amazing.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. This has been a blast. I love everything that you shared with us and everything that you're doing. And for our listeners out there, go check out Oyster. I'm on the website here, and I just love it. It says hire anywhere and thrive everywhere. Like I love it. And so for the people leaders out there, go check out what Oyster's doing. And thank you so much. Thanks again for spending an hour plus with us
Thank you.
chatting. It's been a
This
lot
was
of fun.
super fun. Thanks for having me.
Talk to you later. Bye, Kim.
Bye, guys.